Let's start today with the 8 most destructive words in the English language. It is a phrase that has killed more human connection, destroyed more employee loyalty, and extinguished more frontline innovation than any other phrase in the history of business. Imagine a customer is in distress. Imagine an employee has a brilliant, slightly unconventional idea to solve their problem. They bring it to their manager, and the manager looks at them, sighs, and says, "I'm sorry, but it's company policy." How many times have you heard that? How many times have you said that? We have built a corporate world that is absolutely obsessed with command and control. We love our standard operating procedures. We love our employee handbooks. We love our approval matrices. But what if I told you that every time you add a layer of bureaucracy to protect yourself from the 1% of employees who might make a mistake, you are actively punishing the 99% of brilliant people who are desperately trying to do work that matters? What if the very systems you built to scale your business are the exact things preventing you from scaling human connection? Stay with me until the end of this episode. We are going to look at the massive hidden tax of bureaucracy, the fundamental difference between managing and hospitality. And I'm going to give you one radical experiment you can run with your team this week to fundamentally dismantle your own red tape. Welcome to the H2H experiment. I'm Joao, and I'm your host. If you've been searching for a leadership podcast that strips away the corporate jargon and goes straight to the psychological core of why we do what we do, you are in the right place. Today, we are talking about trust. We are talking about autonomy. And we are talking about why the 100-year-old factory blueprint that runs your company is suffocating the humanity out of your people. To understand why we love rules so much, we have to look back at how modern management was invented. Over 100 years ago, during the Industrial Revolution, a guy named Frederick Winslow Taylor invented scientific management, also known as Taylorism. The goal was simple: make factories as efficient as possible. The underlying psychological assumption of Taylorism was incredibly insulting. It assumed that the worker on the front line was fundamentally lazy, untrustworthy, and not smart enough to make decisions. Therefore, the thinkers, management, had to write exhaustively detailed rules, and the doers, the workers, just had to comply. Turn the wrench, pull the lever, don't think, just do. Here is the tragedy. We are still running modern, relational, knowledge-based businesses using this exact same factory blueprint. I call this the factory hangover. When we build massive employee handbooks and require 3 levels of signature approval to refund a $50 product to a furious client, we are operating under the factory hangover. We are telling our frontline employees, "I do not trust your judgment. I do not trust your empathy. You are just a meat robot here to execute my SOP." And then, in the very next breath, we complain that our employees are quiet quitting and lack engagement. You cannot treat complex, deeply emotional human beings like programmable factory machinery and then be surprised when you get robotic, sterilized results. When you rely on command and control and heavy bureaucracy, the very best thing you can ever achieve is good service. Now, service is important. Service is black and white. Service is: the product was delivered on time, the food was cooked to the right temperature, the contract was signed without typos. Service keeps you in business. But service is a transaction. It does not create loyalty. It does not create connection. It does not make anyone's heart beat faster. What creates loyalty is hospitality. Hospitality is how you make someone feel while you are delivering the service. It is the color, it is the emotion, it is the bespoke, unscripted moment where an employee looks at a situation, uses their human intuition, and goes wildly out of their way to care for the person in front of them. Will Gadara, the former co-owner of 11 Madison Park, which was named the #1 restaurant in the world, calls this unreasonable hospitality. It's the act of giving people more than they could ever possibly expect. Here is the cognitive surgery for today. You cannot write an SOP for unreasonable hospitality. You cannot write a rule book that says, on step 4, exhibit deep, authentic empathy. You cannot mandate intuition. You cannot mandate magic. Magic requires immediacy. Magic requires an employee who sees an opportunity to care for someone and has the power to act on it right now without asking for permission. If an employee has to ask their manager, who has to ask the director, who has to check the budget code, the moment is dead. The magic dies in the waiting room of company policy. If you are a leader listening to this, I know what your brain is doing right now. Your reticular activating system, your filter, is panicking. You are thinking, wow, if I just let my team do whatever they want, it will be chaos. They will give away the farm. We will go bankrupt. This is the core fear of the command and control leader. You believe that control equals safety. But let's look at the friction matrix. Stephen M.R. Covey wrote brilliantly about this in his book, The Speed of Trust. When trust in an organization goes down, speed goes down, and costs go up. Why? Because you have to build bureaucratic friction to compensate for the lack of trust. Think about the sheer financial cost of your bureaucracy. Think about the hours wasted writing policies, the hours wasted in approval meetings, the hours wasted auditing the approvals. You are spending thousands of dollars in administrative friction just to prevent a frontline employee from making a $100 mistake. But the real cost is the human cost. When a frontline employee, let's say a customer service rep or an account manager, sees a client in pain, their natural human instinct is to help. Empathy is hardwired into our biology. But when they realize that helping that client requires fighting through 3 layers of red tape and fighting their own manager, they eventually stop trying. They learn that their empathy is a liability. They learn that caring is too exhausting. So they put their head down, they read the script, they say, I'm sorry, it's company policy. And in that moment, a little piece of their soul dies. Your customer leaves furious and your culture rots from the inside out. The opposite of command and control is trust and inspire. If you want an organization that scales human connection, you have to do the most terrifying thing a leader can do. You have to extend radical trust to your people before they have perfectly earned it. You have to operate on the fundamental assumption that the people you hired have greatness inside of them, that they want to do the right thing, and that their human intuition on the front lines is infinitely more valuable than your view from the boardroom. Does this mean there are no rules? Of course not. You need boundaries, you need a vision, you need a budget, but within those boundaries, you must give total autonomy. You must transition from being a gatekeeper who approves decisions to a gardener who simply prepares the soil and removes the obstacles so your team can grow. An SOP can protect you from the downside. It can protect you from the 1% failure, but an SOP will forever, permanently cap your upside. It will guarantee mediocrity. Only trust can unlock the upside. This week, we are not just going to talk about autonomy. We are going to execute it. We are going to run a structural experiment to dismantle a tiny piece of your factory hangover. The experiment, the magic budget. If you lead a team, especially a team that interacts with clients, partners, or other departments, I want you to establish a magic budget. Tomorrow morning, you are going to tell your team every single one of you has a discretionary budget of $100 or $50 or whatever fits your reality this month. Your only job is to use this money to create an unscripted, unreasonable moment of hospitality or care for a client or a colleague. Here is the catch. Here is the absolute rule for you, the leader. No approvals required. No POs to fill out, no permission needed. If they want to send a book to a client who mentioned they were struggling with a topic, do it. If they want to buy a coffee for a colleague from another department who is having a brutal week, do it. They just use the money. And at the end of the month, you spend 15 minutes sharing the stories of the magic they created. Watch what happens to the energy in your team. Watch what happens when you tell adults, I trust your judgment implicitly to care for the people in our ecosystem. It will cost you a few $100s, but it will buy you the kind of fierce loyalty, explosive innovation, and deep human camaraderie that billions of dollars in corporate culture initiatives can never buy. Let's start to wrap up this episode. We have to stop hiding behind company policy. We have to stop treating complex, beautiful human beings like liabilities that need to be audited. If you want your people to care about your company has to actually tangibly trust your people. You cannot write an SOP for human magic. You just have to have the courage to get out of the way. If this episode challenged you to rethink your operating system, I invite you to join the movement of conscious leadership. Subscribe to this podcast if you haven't done so yet. And for the full roadmap on how to build cultures of radical trust, check out my books available on Amazon. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting your people. And thank you for having the courage to burn the rule book. Stay human. I'll see you next time. Bye.